أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم. I begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we send the Durud and Salams, peace and blessing and salutation and prayers upon all the noble prophets and messengers, especially Hajjat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We thank you for joining me once again, and I will try to put in as much as possible into this short meeting. But inshallah, just to recap that last week we were speaking about, we started to talk about how do we treat this situation that we are in terms of it being a crisis, some sort of disease, something relatively new for most people that we've never had to face something like this, and relate in relation to our faith as Muslims or as believers, and trying to put this into perspective. How do we understand it? Does it come from Allah? What is the lesson in it? How do we behave during the time? And a number of questions can come up because you can gauge by the types of comments that you see online, especially as to the amount of misunderstanding when it comes to what should we believe in times like this. What do we what does these types of situations supposed to teach us? And we have to speak specifically to Muslims' faith. What are we supposed to believe? And one of the first principles we should start with is to understand that in order to have hope, you must have faith. You can't hope in anything. You can't say, well, I have a lot of hope in everything, but behind that, at the same time, we can't say, well, I really don't believe in a creator. I really don't believe, because the two things don't go hand in hand. In order to have hope in something, you have to have a belief in something to come which is greater. And this is what having belief in a creator and an overall powerful being does for us as Muslims, as people. So we have to ask all the time, what is our faith based on? Where does it come from? This faith that we are supposed to have as Muslims, how do we know for sure that we have the correct faith? How do we know for sure that what we are explaining is the correct explanation? Because everyone who follows a religion will tell you, well, I'm right. This is what I do. And it is not for us to guide everyone. Guidance is only for Allah, meaning the ultimate guidance. However, it is for us to remove doubt from our own minds first, and then to remove doubts from the minds of others, our family members, and those who sincerely are asking for advice. And in order to do that, we have to understand and remove doubt from our own selves first. And this is how we increase ourselves in faith. Our faith is not based on blindly following some belief that, well, I've been told that a God exists. This is not faith, especially for Muslims. This is not what our faith is based on. Our faith is based on a number of rational pillars in which we are certain that we are on the right path. And how do we know that for sure? And this is what we'll try to go through relatively quickly in summary form. I can't go through in detail to give you all of the specifics, but we will go through as much as possible, inshallah. So you have two clashing things. Right now, we have people who are explaining this. Okay, we have this virus. We have all of these things happening in the world. But you religious people are saying, that this is God's work, and this is the work of some creator. So then is it that God is an evil God? Is it that he is punishing people all over the world for something? And people, and we tend to say, we tend to pull out the innocent as examples and say, oh, look at the children and those innocent ones. Why should I believe in your faith? Why should I believe in your God if this is what you say your God is causing to these innocent people? And I'm sure we've heard some of these criticisms before. We must have heard something similar which accuses us or puts us into a corner to explain why is it that if it is you believe in this God, that this same God is causing all of this thing around the world. This is one of the things that we're going to look at, inshallah. We might have the question as to where does everything come from? If it is you're saying that it comes from God, but then what is the effort of people who are the scientists and all of these people? Are you all hearing me still? You can check if it is you're having trouble on your private devices, check your settings, because some people are hearing and others are saying they can't hear right now. So I would advise to check your mobile device to see that it's using the speaker correctly. Thanks, right? So Tarek, you're hearing. Assalamu alaikum. Nice to have you. Razi, you can check and see the settings on your Zoom and see if, inshallah, that would solve it. You're not the only one, but okay. So we're speaking. So we're asking the questions now, the hard questions, which sometimes puts us into a corner to explain who is this God that we're supposed to be talking about? Who is this creator? Because at the same time, how do you explain that this creator is a good God who is so merciful, but at the same time, all of these things are happening around the world? Well, this is why our faith is not blind. Our faith is based on rational evidence and it's right around us. But we have to ask ourselves, where does our personal faith come from? What's the reason that we are Muslim today? And I want everyone to ask ourselves this. Why are you a Muslim? Or why did you become Muslim? And those things could have changed over time. You could have started out in one place and then over time your belief increases or changes on the basis on which it is now. But the point is, where it is now or where we would have begun from, compare those things and ask ourselves right now, what is our faith based on? One of the most common examples of Muslims is that we are born into Islam. And that's simply the reason why we are Muslim. You ask somebody, so why are you Muslim? Well, my father, my mother were Muslim. So I am automatically Muslim. This is not enough reason for being a Muslim or having faith. There are 6 possible reasons why someone is a Muslim or has become a Muslim. And the first reason is that they were born into it. And being born into Islam is, yes, it is a blessed thing. We have to raise our children in Islam. We have to do our duty because this is the easiest way to pass on any type of tradition. You can grow the ummah easily because you have the time to invest into your children and to teach them. But this in itself is not enough reason to remain a Muslim. Because if we were to say, well, I was born Muslim, so that makes it right, then the same reason can go for someone who says, well, I was born a Catholic, I was born a Christian, I was born in this, then what makes you different from me? And so, being born into Islam is encouraged, is something that we have a responsibility to do. However, it is not sufficient evidence, it is not sufficient reason for our faith. Our faith in Islam does not lie in these things because you can't impose that on somebody else. You have no case. The second reason as to why, and again, I'm just trying to gloss over these things. We can't go into too much detail. This is more of a classroom sort of topic, but inshallah, we'll cover as much as we could. The second reason why you can have people coming into Islam or remaining Muslim is they have some sort of outward experience that makes them believe in this Islam. So, for example, in the month of Ramadan, people often say, oh, look at how, how people come together in the masjid. It's such a nice big gathering and people are sharing food and they come and they pray together, they pray the Taraweeh and they do all of these things. And for the first time, we might be seeing we don't have the opportunity to see that as yet in this Ramadan, which will be starting next week, inshallah. But people use this as evidence sometimes. Look at how big this gathering is. But that is not enough evidence for being a Muslim. Because if we were to say, well, these great gatherings are so nice and this is what makes Islam great, there are other religions who are doing bigger gatherings all over the world. Why is ours an evidence for faith and theirs not? We can't use it as a reason. Yes, it can bring some sort of certainty to ourselves individually. Yes, it can show us a sign that something is going good, that there's a blessing here. But having an outward experience, seeing great gatherings for Eid, seeing Muslims being generous, all of these things are just an effect. And they're not a reason or a rational basis for Islam being correct or not. The third reason why it is some people become Muslim or remain Muslim is that we say, it's based on our natural fitra, our natural selves. And, children are born in Islam. We say children are born pure. So if they pass away before attaining puberty or before being responsible for their sins, they go directly into Jannah because they were innocent. Some religions will say that the concept of original sin and the inheritance sin, we don't have that in Islam. We believe that as a pure child, you don't inherit anyone else's sins or anyone else's doing. Yes, your circumstance, the household you are in, the people you are around, it can change your condition, but you as someone who is responsible for your actions, you are pure. You are born pure. And we have this natural fitra which helps us to determine right from wrong. We see something and we are inclined to it and it just feels that this is the correct thing, this is truthful, this is nice. But what happens is that people rely on this 100% to say, I just feel that Islam is the right thing. It just fits. It just goes with our natural self. Yes, it does. Yes, it does go with our natural self. However, we cannot rely on our fitra, our natural self 100%. Why is that? Because for the simple fact that your natural self can be corrupted. How so? The example is that if you become accustomed enough to anything, you begin to love it. And one of the easiest examples is music. You might start off hearing something, Carnival just passed by, and you start off hearing something, as much as you might not, you might try to avoid something, you hear it all around you, and before you know it, it starts to grow on you, and that song is inside your head, inside your heart. The beat, it starts to affect you differently from the first time you heard it to the 100th time you hear the same song. And what starts to happen is that you become so accustomed to something that your natural ability to determine that that was a wrong thing, that it's commanding you to do wrong things, it's no longer there. And this is the same thing with any sin or anything that is wrong for ourselves. That you might start off, you commit some error, and you become remorseful. You say, oh Allah, forgive me, I've committed some mistake. But you don't take yourself out of it. You continue to do that thing over and over. What happens? You don't feel as much remorse anymore. After a while, it starts to wear away. So your natural ability to determine what is right from wrong, because you've become accustomed to certain things which are wrong, we can no longer determine clearly based on our natural self, because our natural self has now become corrupted. We can't rely on it anymore. So for us to say, well, I have rational thought. I can determine what's right from wrong. I can tell you Islam is right and this thing is wrong. Yes, that may be so, but you can't rely on it 100%, because we can become corrupted, and we see people in the religion who allow wrongdoing disguised as religion, and we try to allow it. And this is because we have our wrong practices we become accustomed to, and now our natural selves can no longer see how wrong it is. And so we're trying to allow it and make it right. So our natural selves, our fitra, yes, it can determine right from wrong. However, just because for the natural reason that it can be corrupted, we cannot rely on it to determine that our religion is the right choice or is the 100% truth. We have to rely on something else. The fourth reason why people come into Islam or remain Muslims is because they have some sort of spiritual experience. And this is a popular one. You hear many people saying, I've had a dream. I saw the Kaaba, and I saw great, I saw the heavens, and I saw these great things. I'm sure that this Islam has to be correct. Now, a spiritual experience has to be taken together with what the religion says as the Sharia is the right and wrong things to do or avoid. We can't take it in isolation. That's number one. The second thing is that a spiritual experience can give us personally some increase in iman, some increase in certainty. But you can't convince anybody else about what you have experienced personally, because it only affects us. It's a strong reminder, it's a strong reason for us. I've seen this thing, I've felt the feeling. But you can't communicate that and convince anybody else that, well, just because you had a dream means that you're on the right path. Because I can bring 5 other people who will tell you they've had dreams about seeing other religions. And for them, that was some form of certainty. So what's the difference? You're seeing the Kaaba, somebody else is seeing some other prophet or non-prophet, something else, some other religion. So what's the difference? Who's right? And that's why we can never base our religion and our faith on any of these 4 things. We cannot base it on the fact that we were born into Islam. We cannot base the truthfulness of Islam because we were born in it, because we had some sort of outward experience that we see the greatness of some gathering of Hajj, of how great it looks. This is not a reason, because there are other gatherings big like this around the year in India and different parts of the world. So these things aren't sufficient reason for why Islam is correct. We can't base it on the fact that we can determine right or wrong, because we can become corrupted and our ability to determine right or wrong is hence corrupted. Neither can we base it on us having some spiritual experience, a dream, some vision, anything like this, because it's only a reason for you. But it's not anything that you can teach or make somebody else convinced of what you have experienced. And so there are only 2 things which matter when it comes to proving that our religion is the right thing. We mentioned 4 points, which are the most popular things that when you look around at everyone, we're either born into Islam, we've come into the religion because through marriage or through seeing people gathering at the mosque and we want to be part of that big group. These are not valid reasons for the truthfulness of whether Islam is true or not. The only reasons that you can tell me that you can validate that Islam is true is in the last 2 reasons. And that is that there exists a creator and that there are prophets who were sent to tell us about that creator. So we've mentioned 6 reasons in total. Being born into Islam, having an outward experience, relying on our natural selves or fitra, having a spiritual experience. None of these 4 reasons can determine that Islam by themselves. Yes, it can give us some level of iman, but by themselves you can't prove it, We can prove that we are on the right path. Only number 5 and 6 can tell us, and that is proving that a creator exists. And then number 6, that that creator has sent someone to teach us that this creation around us, this is how we have to live. This is what is right and wrong. So we are okay so far as to understanding where our faith actually lies. It's not that we were born in any religion. When we look at all this that's happening around us, and people are saying, you know, this God that you believe in, this is what he is causing. The answer to all of this comes from understanding what we are speaking about today. Why? You will never, and understand this, someone who does not believe that a creator exists, you will never agree with them as to what is right and wrong in terms of morality. You will never agree. Why? Because, and this is what secularism is, people who try to find and what they call morality as being good and evil is actually based on what we think, secularists I'm talking about, what they think that is good for people determined by people. And the difference is that people who believe in a creator believe in what is good and bad for people determined by the creator of those people. So this is a key point which we have to keep in mind, that this is a big difference, that you will never agree, because if you are trying to explain why something is good or evil to someone who does not believe in a creator, your points will always draw back to two different sources. Religious people will always draw back to a religious text, or that the Quran says so and so, or that God says so and so. And someone who has no belief in a creator will always draw back to saying, well, this is just wrong because it causes, it's just evil, or it causes problem for so much people, or it causes harm. And so you will never agree. And that's why we have to go through these reasons for our faith, so that we understand our faith. Yes, while those reasons can help us, that we were born into Islam, it is a blessing. It is something we have to do to encourage, to get the children growing up in Islam. But it can't stand on its own as a proof for Islam. Yes, you can have some experience in Ramadan growing up. Ramadan is such a great thing. Seeing the Hajj is such a great thing. But by itself, it does not prove that Islam is right. Yes, you can have our natural selves telling us something is right and wrong. However, our cells are not the source. It is not the source for determining what is right and wrong. Number 4, you can have how many dreams or experiences that you want, but it will never be by itself the pillar to stand as to whether your religion is right or wrong. It can only start from number 5 and number 6. And number 5, we'll talk about quickly, which is that you have to prove that a creator exists. Forget for a few seconds, that Allah, that we have Allah, that we have the Quran, we have any of this. How do you know, brothers and sisters, how do you know for sure that a creator exists? And again, we are summarizing these things because we don't have time to go into much detail. But the simple explanation lies in one way of saying cause and effect. If we look around, everything around us has a cause and an effect. And we know this by observation. For everything that begins to happen, something else causes it to happen. If a seed is planted in the ground, then that is what causes a tree to grow from it. Follow? If it is that you see a ball rolling down the road, something caused it to go into motion. And these are simple laws that we know about. However, this is where we have to put our understanding to be able to go further. If everything has a cause, where did the cause begin? You tell me, where did this entire world and everything in it come from? Right? You can name the earliest timeline that you know based on your education, whether it is that the world was created from the Big Bang Theory, that there was a mass of gases floating around, and then it caused a big explosion and went into the planets and all of these things. Or if you want to go before that, and you say, well, you know, that there was some there was some space. You name any point in time, and I will ask you one simple question: what caused that to happen? So let's take, for example, this Big Bang theory. What caused that to happen? We had this mass of gases all around. What caused those that mass of gases to be there in the first place? Now, even some of the greatest intellectuals who we claim to be intellectuals, and this is something we have to also take as a lesson. Just because you're good in one subject doesn't mean you're good in everything, right? And this goes for everyone that you can gauge by, right? Myself included. Or you can be expert in a number of subjects. However, you're not expert in every single thing. And this is unfortunately the case for some of the greatest celebrated intellectuals of our time. Even the great Dr. Stephen Hawking, many of us would know this name. And it was disappointing to see that in his thesis, he mentions that the origination of everything can come from the law of gravity, which caused everything to come into creation. Now, that's a contradiction in itself. Because you're trying to say, on one hand, that there's a law of gravity and there's nothing, which caused everything else to come into existence. That's a contradiction. Because you just named something, but you're saying that nothing exists. How can you say that the law of gravity is nothing, but you just called it a law of gravity? Where did it come from? And so for every single thing that any scientist can name, you can ask the question, what caused that to happen? You tell me there was a law of gravity, what caused that to happen? And you will always reach back to a point where our point of faith starts at this point. That at some point in time, there had to be something which never was caused by anything else, something which doesn't have a beginning, something which is not subject to time and space, which caused everything else. Otherwise, if you tell me that there is a scientific explanation for black holes or something in space, I can ask you every single thing you tell me. Well, what caused that to happen? What brought that into existence? And we'll always reach back to the point that at some point, it had to start somewhere. And for Muslims, our faith begins that at some point, there had to be something, some being, something which is not subject to time and space and does not have a beginning, which caused everything else to begin. But we won't go any further into that. There's for those who want to research further, you should search a concept called the Kalam Cosmological Argument, KCA for short, Kalam Cosmological Argument. And this explains the three premises of this logical argument. It doesn't change with religion, it's a logical argument which explains this. So, this is the explanation for the beginning of everything. We don't yet know what this creator is, what's the definition, but we're going to come to that now. How do you know this creator exists? We know this not just by people telling us or by some religious person explaining. We know this first of all by looking around us, by using the senses which we have. And we know at least 4 things are attributes of our creator. That our creator is a necessarily existent, and we know that the creator has to be necessary because nothing could have begun or had any start, as we just said, without this creator creating everything else. So he's a necessarily existent, living, one, knowledgeable, willing creator. And we'll explain these points quickly. That how do we know that this creator is living? Because for the simple fact that in order to give something, you must have something. If you have to give life, you have to have life yourself. You can't have a dead seed which brings life to a living plant. If the seed is really dead, it will never sprout a tree. But if it sprouts something, it means that there was something inside of it that's defined as life still. And so just the mere fact that we are living or we define anything as being life, it means that our creator, the one who created everything, is living. Number two, how do we know that there is one God? Why can't there be two, three, four? Why can't there be multiple gods sharing power? And that's because look around us. We might have come across some posts that say, oh, dolphins have returned to Italy. We are seeing some parts of the world healing. You know what this is? This is just more evidence for proof of oneness of our creator. And that is, let me explain how that goes. That everything in the world, in the universe, in creation is in perfect tandem, except where we interfere with it. And the simple fact that nature by itself starts to regenerate itself into its life cycle shows us that without us interfering or with us stopping as much damage that we are doing, the life cycle just regenerates itself. A quick example is that when you go into deep parts of the forest where there's little to no interaction between humans and the animal kingdom, you find that there is no evidence of deformity in the jungle, in those parts of the forest. But from the time that any human comes into contact with it directly or indirectly, pollution, vaccines, we've released some animal who's been cured with our vaccines into the wild. Anytime we start to get involved into the life cycle, you start to see deformities happen in that life cycle. But the fact is, without us, the world is in perfect tandem. It is in perfect circle. And this understanding there's no chaos shows that it comes from a single creator who is determining what should happen. I do this example in Maktab often, that I ask the kids, if I give you this room to clean up, tell me how would you like to clean it up? One of them says, I'll take a broom and sweep up. The other one says, I'll take the vacuum. The other one says, I'll pick it up with my fingers, all the pieces of paper. And I say to you, what you just did was give me 3 different ways to clean up the same one room. If all of you all were trying to do your own thing inside of here, you would have found chaos. It would not be one single way of it happening for itself. You would start to argue with one another where you should sweep up to, where should the other one vacuum up to, which is the best way to do it. There would be arguments and chaos happening. But in the world, we don't see chaos. At least we only see chaos wherever we interfere, wherever we are involved in the world. We see deformities, we see things happening bad. And that mere fact that there's no chaos in the pure planet is a proof of oneness of a creator. We don't yet know who this creator is. There's a knowledgeable creator. How do we know this? That in order for any system to exist, which is complex, the proof of knowledge is that something is very complex and does not come together in pieces slowly. For instance, if I give you a pen, we can take apart the pen into various pieces, but it will not be a pen in these separate pieces. You have to all put them together in order for it to be functional. However, they don't come together all by themselves or in parts of time. Our human bodies are an example of complex creatures, which you could not start with a lung and then add a heart and then add a brain into pieces for it to happen. It all had to come into a complex state of everything happening at the same time for it to become into what we are today. And the mere reason and the mere fact that this is such a complex system which cannot happen by itself in separate parts gives rise to proof of complex nature that we cannot create, that there is some creator behind this complex system. And the other proof is proof of willingness, proof of order in the world. How do we know that? How do we know that we are not just a factory being pumped out of human beings like the Darwinism likes to promote, that we're just random, we're just product of nature acting upon itself? We have one simple answer right in front of me. That is this simple thing called a fingerprint. Do we know or do we remember that there's no one in the world that has the same print as us right now? That's just us living in the world. What about the billions of people who have lived and died in the world? And yet not a single person has duplicated a single thing simple as a fingerprint. What this tells us is that there is a willing creator who is purposely making us unique. If we were a factory, even lotto numbers duplicate themselves. If you had a factory which is pumping out all of these humans and these random natural parts of nature, you would have had duplication already. However, this is just the simplest of examples that just because our fingerprints can never duplicate shows us we are willingly being created unique. That our creator, we don't yet know who is the creator. Our creator is making us into this unique example. Another example of that is a snowflake. Doesn't duplicate. Yet you can do the maths if you can. How many snowflakes can you count? And yet not a single snowflake is ever duplicated. This is an amazing thing in nature. And it tells us that the creator of all of this is purposely doing it. It's not by chance, it is not by nature, just like a factory pumping out these things. And so we use these examples to guide us into realizing a creator must exist. We have not yet spoken about a religion or a prophet or anything else. All we have done so far is looked around us, right in front of us. We have looked and observed and realized everything could not have been by chance. A creator to all of this must exist. And this is the fifth point. This is where our faith begins, that we are certain all of this comes from somewhere. And when you understand that, then you ask, who is this creator? What does this creator want from us? How should we act? And that's where we come into the sixth point. The only way we know that this creator exists, what is the name of this creator, what does the creator want, is through revelation. We cannot come to rational reason as to what does this creator want just by thinking about it. We only know these things through revelation, through a prophet, someone who proves himself through point number 6. As to how do we know you are a truthful prophet? Only through investigating that we can know that, okay, then this creator who we've observed our surroundings to know has to exist, then you have to be really this representative of this creator. And when we answer these questions, then we start to answer as to where the source of all goodness comes from. Where does our morality for what is good and evil come from? It comes from these places. And I won't go into point number 6 because we'll run out of time. But I want to connect it to some answers really quickly. We asked a question as to this, what we are living in. Is this some sort of evil? The people who don't believe in God or in a religion, their definition of evil is not really any definition of morality. It's based on what they think is painful, what they think causes pain. It's not from a source of who determines right and wrong. Because if you ask someone who does not have a religion, who doesn't believe in God, their determination for right and wrong comes from themselves, which means you will never have a full system that agrees as to what is universally right and wrong. You will always have some argument and some difference, and that's not truly morality. That is based on what is painful. So people say that innocent children dying in the world is wrong. Why? Why is that? Are you the ones that gave life? Just because you are basing it as being something that causes you grief, causes you some sort of harm or pain, you are basing that as a decision to say whether something is evil. However, if we were to say that anything painful is evil, then let me ask some questions. Taking an injection when you go to the doctor's office, is that an evil thing? We don't call it evil because we know that as a result of some small amount of pain temporarily, it gives us some greater benefit as a result of it. This is what belief does for us, that you may experience some sort of pain in the world, but there's some benefit to come from it. So we don't call that pain that our Creator gives us as evil unless it is defined as evil from our Creator. Because for the mere fact that in reality, the secularists, they term things based on what is causing grief and causing pain. We don't do that. Our source of all things good and evil comes from prophethood and revelation, and from what the Creator determines as being right and wrong. We can't go much further into this because we'll be out of time, but we'll answer just a few quick points that I mentioned earlier. When we talk about where does all of this virus come from and where would the chaos come from, and I will go into this detail in the next session, inshallah, is because our Creator gives us free will, absolute free will. Do what you want, but you will be held accountable. Accountable according to what? According to what the revelation has told us is right versus wrong. And so everything that comes into creation is done by the Creator himself. But if we have to look at the revelation splits it into two. Allah creates everything, but inside of there, he creates that which he is pleased with as well. Not just simply that everything is anything. If I were to give you a multiple choice exam now, and I tell you only one is a correct answer, would you call me evil because 3 of them were wrong answers, even though you sat in a class with me and you learned what is the right thing? We don't tell the teacher that he's evil because he gave us 3 wrong answers together with the right one to choose. No. And this is a simple thing, that we are tested based on our free will, our free ability. Which one will you choose? Because I have already told you and taught you. I'm going to test you to see, are you going to put it into practice? Are you going to choose the correct thing? And so we have the free will to choose what is right from wrong. If we choose a wrong answer, our Creator is the one who is in charge of bringing everything into creation, but it may be as a result of our evil choices, because we either knew or chose not to learn what is wrong and made the wrong choice. And so when we see these things as a result of our actions in the world, then it all comes from us. Allah can allow something to happen or prevent it from happening, our Creator. Because if we ask a question, this virus, it came from supposedly someone eating a bat soup somewhere, yes? And it's an interesting meme I saw. Someone says, some motivation, if you want to think that one person can never change the world, then you've never eaten bat soup, right? And that's to show you the power of one person. But I have to ask a question. It's not the first time anyone did it. What caused that first case to happen? What caused that specific case that the virus started at that point in time? And it's these sort of things which we can see that Allah can cause and allow things to happen or prevent them from happening as much as He wills. It's not the only case of people eating wrong things, but Allah, in His power and His might, has allowed certain things to happen as a result of wrong choices, and it has affected all of us. So we have to refine our faith and go further into understanding what truly makes us believers, what truly makes us Muslims. And inshallah, we'll continue next week into understanding, how do we know that our revelation is a correct thing? How do we know that this prophet is truly a prophet? How do we know Islam is the correct thing at all? And when we do that, we'll come back to having true hope and true faith. Because in order to have hope, you must have faith. In order to understand where we must go from here, we must have understanding of where we came from, our Creator. Why were we created? And we have to go through these steps, inshallah, to get to that. So I hope I won't take any more time. I hope that inshallah this has been beneficial for us. And it shows us that our faith is not based on simply being born into a religion or simply having some nice experience or some spiritual dream or some spiritual experience, but it is based on using our senses, to use our brains to think that this makes sense some creator must exist. What does this creator want from us? Has he communicated with us at all? And then ask those further questions and bring ourselves to great feet. And inshallah, I hope that we will continue to do that in our next session, inshallah. If you have any questions, you can send them separately to me. But for now, we will pause here and look out for further information invites for our next Zoom session. I thank you for your time. Please be sure to perform your Dhuhr Salah. Today being Friday is still a blessed day. So do all of the other blessed things associated with the day of Jummah, recitation, and sending Darood upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And inshallah, may Allah accept it from us and bless us. Wal akhir da'wa and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. I'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.